CSI style protection for when I'm grinding the oak beams. The CSI, if you don't know, it's crime scene investigation. So I've gone down the route of purchasing a DuPont all-in-one costume protection. It's got everything, including hood and a zipper, so you can get yourself as well covered as you can get, and all for €4. So bargain it would seem, although you do sweat immensely within the costume. So beware. And it's inside the house. The downstairs isn't particularly warm anyway. It's quite nice as you got a cool breeze sort of coming through. But in this suit, you just sweat profusely. So anyway, I got absolutely caked in dust and wood and all sorts the last time I was working with the grinder, and I thought it might be worthwhile to get something that give me a little bit more protection. The downside is as well, when you're all sort of kitted out like that, and then you've got your goggles on and your mask, everything sort of gets misted up. I don't know, because you are sweating or whatever, or because it's just so hot. But the goggles kept sort of, I couldn't see through the goggles, so I was sort of working blind, and it just was very uncomfortable. So hence, I was continually stopping and sort of wiping the goggles. I tried a different pair, tried a pair of eye protectors rather than goggles, see if that would be any better, but it wasn't. Changed the mask, had the big mask on with the filters, and that was even worse. And then went back to the standard sort of masks that you put on. She's got a little mini filter built in with it anyway, but it seems to be slightly more comfortable to wear, and also kind of fits my face more. I don't know, the big one with the filters seems a little bit small, for me anyway, so it's not comfortable at all to wear. Suppose it gives you better protection, but it's not. I'm just not a big fan of it. So, and also it pinches my nose. So I decided just use the. I've got masses of the other ones, the sort of the standard mass with little mini filters. So I decided I would use those instead. But like I say, your goggles get steamed up almost instantaneously. So then you're kind of working blind, which isn't great when you're using a little angle grinder without a guard on it. So anyway, cracking on. This is the area which was sort of the main living room. The main beam had been, I think, it had been varnished over the years, and then it had been painted over, and it was all cracked, and it was a bit of a mess. And a lot of these beams were blackened. I think with as we talked about before, there was a fire within the house at some stage in the house's history, and a lot of these beams have gotten blackened thanks to the fire. So it's a question of trying to burn sort of that stuff off as well, or grind that stuff off to try and bring back the look of the oak. So there's also a dip in this ceiling, and again, I can't say whether it is a reason because of the fire or what it was, but it's the same obviously upstairs. When you go up to what's going to be the bedrooms and the showroom, you know, that's quite a difference in level between that and the area that's got the briquettes on it, which I did in a recent video. I'm showing you the bedroom layouts. So I had a thought of maybe jacking up this beam, and I thought for about sort of 30 seconds and then decided it was a crazy idea, because to do that, you're going to end up dropping all the existing cob and that's on which is the flooring for the upstairs, just to gain maybe another 10 centimeters or about 4 inches. And I just felt, well, it just wouldn't be worth the while. It'd be a lot of hassle involved. It'd mean dropping all the ceilings down and having to redo all of those. for the sake of it's a lowish ceiling in this part of the house. The other side, which was the guy's bedroom, slightly higher because it hadn't dropped. But the beam that's in place here is, again, it's an enormous beam, enormous chunk of oak, which is obviously dating back a couple of hundred years, I suppose, to when it was first planted or when it first seeded. And here it is still in the 21st century, giving it some. I think there's been a little bit of repair to it at some stage as well, when they've done some of the work on the outside front of the house. Looks like they've had a section cut in, but anyway, it's worth trying to bring it back to some sort of quality so we can see the timber and get rid of the varnish and get rid of the paint and all the rest of the goo that was on it. And there's like 1,000,001 nails you have to take out as well. You have to find, because I think it sounds like after the fire, what they'd done is they panelled the top ceiling in a rather bizarre way. So it was these sort of smallish sheets of hardwood, random sized, and then they had just a little framing, a very thin timber frame going around each of them. And because of that, there's like 1,000,001 tiny nails sort of bedded into the timbers. So it's a question of getting the panelling off, then getting the trims off, and then removing as many nails as possible before starting this. And invariably, you always miss one or two. So as you go along, you sort of pings the nail with the grinder. So it's not an easy task at all. The previous video saying it was horrible, and it is. It's a horrible job. Even with the suit on, you're sort of caked it. The tiny section of your face that's still sort of visible, sort of your forehead and that, you still get caked in dust and crap. So I'm hoping that at the end of it, it'll all be well worthwhile, and we'll have some beautiful timber to look at for decades to come. And definitely going with the idea of using linseed oil. That sounds like a winner. So it's just a question of there's a treatment called xylophene, I think it's called in France, and that's a treatment against woodworm and woodworm infestation and stuff. So I will have to do that first, and I believe that's 2 coats you give that, or 2 sprays you give that. And then that should take care of the infestation, and then after that, then we'll be all ready for putting linseed oil as well, which would be sprayed on as well. And interestingly enough, we're working also in the loft area recently. 90% of the timbers, or 95% of the timbers in the loft area, have got no woodworm attack at all on them. Now, clearly, that means that it was a fairly dry area. Now, obviously, the woodworm preferred sort of humid, damp conditions to burrow into. So it's quite amazing when you're up in the loft area, which is going to be the bedrooms, just how little, practically no damage at all by woodworm on the joists and the beams that are up there. There's only just some of the old rafters where there'd been leaks for donkey's years, and there was 1 or 2 of those that had obviously got woodworm and then got stuck into that, but they hadn't progressed. Bizarrely enough, they hadn't progressed from the rafters onto the main beams. So I should imagine they will clean up a lot easier, because there's a lot less stuff on them. It's literally just the age of the timber rather than anything that's been added to the beams over the years. So that should be a little bit easier to do, and it's a wee bit more open as well up there. So that should be good. I bought 2 of these blue, they're called turbo discs, and they've got 6 blades on each disc. And they've kind of worn down now, but I've done a heck of a lot of grinding with them, and they were only something like €7, 30 centime each. So very, very cheap from that famous Chinese site. And so I've ordered another 3, and I've still got 7 of the black discs, and I've also ordered some sanding discs as well, which is like that sort of look like the sort of flappy folded over sanding discs, which and 40 grit, which should just help to take off any final sort of imperfections that are on there. Because obviously, when you're grinding, you're grinding to a fairly flat surface, but there's lots of inundations in the old timbers themselves, and also where you've had damage with woodworm and stuff. It digs in a wee bit there and sort of rakes all that out. So hopefully, with the 3 new discs that are on their way, and the black disc that I've got, and then the sanding discs, that should be sufficient to finish off all the beams that are currently in there. So with that, then, like I say, I can put the treatment on, the woodworm treatment, and then after that we can get down to the nicer side of things, which is the linseed oil. And there's a few patches in the ceiling, well, again, possibly due to the fire, that the cupboard's sort of fallen out, and it's been kind of repaired and faffed about with, but it's a bit of a mess. So that will need some rejigging as well to try and bring it back. The other area that I did previously, which, like I said, was the guy's bedroom, that's in fairly good nick. The ceiling there, all the plaster work is fairly good nick, so that should just be a matter of washing it all down, and then priming it, and then bringing it in a nice white emulsion. I do like it white emulsion on a ceiling. For me, there's no other colour. And then it would just be a question of working out what kind of lighting to put in here. Like I say, it's not an overly high ceiling in here, and I really dislike spotlights, so I certainly won't be putting spotlights in here. It's kind of, the guy had fluorescent lamps either side of the big beam, believe it or not. So I know you get terrific light with that. I did an extension years ago, and I put them in the kitchen area, and it's superb if you're a cook. There's no shadow at all if you put fluorescent lighting in. They're really good for that, but obviously aesthetically, it doesn't look anything at all. So I won't be using fluorescent lighting in here. I won't be using spotlights. So I need to work out something that's going to work well, that's not going to hang down too deep, and that's going to blend in with the character of the room with these fantastic oak beams. So if there's anybody out there that's got any suggestions, by all means ping them through. I always like to hear people's ideas. It's good because often there's people thinking of things that you haven't thought of or wouldn't think of. And it's excellent. It's a bit like the linseed oil. My initial thoughts were I would probably varnish the beams, and then somebody said, well, try linseed oil because it works really well and it brings out the colour of the wood, and it's possibly easier to apply than varnish because you can spray it on. So it's great that there's so many of you out there that do offer advice and suggestions and tips, and it's terrific. I really do appreciate everybody that makes the effort, one, to watch these videos, and two, to get in touch and tell me things that I may not already know. So this is the second day of grinding down, and the second day with my C.S.I protection on, and this is sort of the aftermath. This is what you're left with at the end of it. So it's pretty awful stuff. Needs a damn good sweep through, and then later on, I've got an industrial vacuum, but it's currently in Normandy. And the next time I'm in Normandy, I should be recuperating that and bringing it back, which will help. Obviously, I'll always brush up first, get 99% of it up, and then just run the hoover over just to finish off, so you don't clog the hoover up. So this is another video on grinding and stuff. Hope you find it enjoyable. And remember, as Nick Ross used to say, don't have nightmares, do sleep well tonight. Okay, thanks ever so much for watching, and I shall catch you on the next video. Thanks again. And don't forget to send any tips or advice you've got. Thanks.